All that Kody Brown constructed has utterly collapsed, as a judge has forever banned him from Coyote Pass. The astonishing court ruling has just emerged, and the harsh reality of it will leave you amazed. Stop whatever you are doing. This is quite possibly one of the most jaw-dropping Sister Wives rulings ever. Kody Brown, who was previously the self-dubbed head of the Brown family, is forever banned from Coyote Pass. Yes, forever. The judge's gavel has come down, and the dream intended to bring the family together has officially become Kody's greatest embarrassment. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Reality Recap. But it only gets more incredible. This prohibition didn't come from nowhere. It is the result of weeks of legal theatrics, heart-wrenching testimony, and deep, long, hidden secrets. Coyote Pass fans have been wondering for months what really went down at the ranch. Now they know, and it is worse than anyone ever dreamed. Let's go back. Coyote Pass was going to be Kody's masterpiece. When the Brown family moved to Flagstaff, Arizona, Kody drew a picture so big, so broad, it seemed impossible not to believe him. He towered over that barren desert landscape and boasted to his wives, children, and cameras that this would be their home forever. He promised room for all of them, a plot of safety for Christine Garden, ready land for Janelle, space for Meri so she would not feel left behind, and, of course, the lion's share for Robyn, whom Kody said needed stability for her kids. But it is much simpler to make promises than it is to keep them. As Kody talked about unity, equality, and shared dreams, behind the scenes cracks were beginning to develop. Money disagreements, secret bank accounts, and nepotism quietly poisoned the vision. What was supposed to be a representation of family bonding became a field of betrayal. Fast forward some years, the property still sat vacant. No foundations had been laid, no walls constructed. Rather than constructing houses, Kody was constructing anger. Christine was the first to make a public pronouncement, openly confessing and informing Kody himself that she had lost hope in the vision. She disclosed that each time she brought him up short regarding Coyote Pass, he would sidestep, delay, or deflect. For her, the property had become a means Kody employed to keep others in submission. Janelle, a long-time devoted fan, finally broke out in confessions of her own frustration. She had put up money, given up security, and waited patiently, and nothing panned out, and when she realized that huge sums of family money were being funneled into Robyn's mansion rather than Coyote Pass, the dream edged further and further away from her. When the courtroom war finally started, tempers were hotter than the Arizona desert sun. Christine and Janelle were united, ready to take on Kody like never before. This wasn't a battle over money. It was about justice, dignity, and the truth. Imagine the setting, the courtroom electric with tension, felt from the hallway. There sat Christine and Janelle, calm but determined, their lawyers with stacks of documents, receipts, and contracts at the ready. Meanwhile, Kody and Robyn seemed visibly shaken, but forced a hearty veneer. Onlookers hunched forward, reporters jotted down notes, and each gasp seemed to reverberate like thunder. It was less a court hearing, and more a cliffhanger season finale of an addictive drama, except that this had no script. As the judge walked in, silence. Everyone understood that today would determine the fate of Coyote Pass and Kody Brown's legacy. Christine was the first to present her opening statement, which set the tone. Standing upright, voice firm, she spoke to the court. When we bought Coyote Pass, it was for all of us. We invested our money, our energy, our dreams. But Kody made promises and compromised them. He threw money into Robyn's house while expecting us to wait. He raised expectations and led us to believe in a dream he never meant to fulfill. Gasps spread through the courtroom as Christine's voice shook. Not from vulnerability, but from years of repressed rage finally unleashed. She didn't tell her story. She lived it for everyone to witness. She remembered nights begging Kody for answers, questioning whether her children would ever experience the dream home they had been promised. Excuse took the place of truth and manipulation for love. Now she demanded responsibility. Then there was Janelle. Wary as Christine was the heart of the testimony, Janelle was the backbone. With mathematical precision, she unfolded documents containing financial records indicating how money from all 4 wives had been allocated. She stated that each wife was to have an equal share in Coyote Pass, but Kody was said to have signed documents transferring the remainder elsewhere. Receipts indicated money going into Robyn's mortgage account, and Coyote Pass remaining unscathed. I worked day and night for years, Janelle assured the court, her voice firm and unshaken. "I invested in this family on Kody's assurances, only to discover my sacrifices supporting someone else's comfort, and my children receiving nothing. That is not what we bargained for." The court was abuzz with whispers. The fans had long wondered about nepotism, but now it was in black and white before the judge. Kody finally testified, his trademark confidence visibly rattled. He maintained that each decision was made with the best interests of the family, stating Robyn's house needed to be built first in order to give stability to her kids, and that Coyote Pass remained the long-term vision. But the judge asked him another question. Why, after all these years, had nothing been done on the land? Why were the other wives waiting while Robyn was safe? Kody's responses stumbled, becoming defensive and even angry. At one point, he became loud, insisting, "I am the head of this family. I make the decisions that are best for everyone." Instead of bolstering his argument, the comment boomeranged. Lawyers for Christine and Janelle jumped on it, claiming, "Leadership without fairness is nothing but domination." The courtroom visibly concurred, nodding in agreement. The judge listened intently to every word, reading documents and studying demeanor. This trial wasn't about paperwork, it was about trust. Whether Kody had kept his word or broken it. At one point, the judge interrupted Robyn's sobbing appeal, declaring firmly, "This court hears facts, not feelings." That sentence cut through the tension like a knife, announcing that the ruling would be based on reality, not compassion. Finally, after days of testimony and hours of evidence, the time had come. The judge pushed their glasses up onto their nose, scanned the papers, and rendered the verdict. The room fell silent. Christine and Janelle clasped each other's hands, leaning forward. Kody turned white, his bluster deflated. Robyn's eyes were puffy from crying, praying softly under her breath. And then the gavel came down, ringing out through the room, and the words were everything. Kody Brown is banished forever from Coyote Pass. The courtroom exploded, gasps, whispers, and even a couple of cheers. It was final. The man who had dominated everything for so long had lost the very terrain he had promised as the symbol of family harmony. And this was only the beginning. Courtrooms are for wars, but what went down between Kody Brown and his ex-wives Christine and Janelle was not just a war. It was a war of money, loyalty, and power. Coyote Pass wasn't land. It was supposed to symbolize unity, each wife her piece of the dream. But it turned into the tool Christine and Janelle used to unveil Kody's betrayal, and with the mounting evidence, the court became an emotional battlefield. Each word, each document, each memory was one of betrayal. Coyote Pass had been bought with joint efforts by all the wives. Every penny counted. Christine sold her house in Las Vegas to invest. Janelle sold assets for her portion. Even Meri pitched in, but less with time. And what they received for it was nothing. The property sat vacant year after year as Kody and Robyn's ways became increasingly opulent. The irony was bitter. Christine and Janelle had exchanged security for a pledge that never materialized. When the case finally came to court, their fury had boiled down to unshakable determination. They weren't simply wanting justice, they demanded the truth. Testifying again, Christine's words sliced like a knife. "This was supposed to be our land, but rather than share it, Kody took it all for himself. He didn't give us houses, he gave Robyn a mansion. He used our finances to create her life and told us to wait." Her voice trembled, not with fear, but with righteous anger. She talked of how Kody used Coyote Pass as bait, promising us constantly that things were going to get better and never did. "He instructed me to wait. He promised the land was our future, but the future never came," she explained. Christine blamed him for employing the land as leverage, an instrument used to keep the wives economically and emotionally tied down. To her, it wasn't betrayal, it was manipulation in the guise of leadership. Janelle, soft-spoken and unruffled, didn't mince words. She had the proof. Bank statements, property deeds, financial records, all presented by her lawyer on a huge board in front of the judge. The courtroom leaned forward as the timeline emerged. Family money was gathered into a joint account, then somehow vanished, only to pop up again in Robyn's mortgage papers. Speaking steadily, Janelle accounted for every transaction. "We trusted Kody to handle finances fairly," she said. "We believed the money was for Coyote Pass. Instead, he used it to fund Robyn's home without our consent. That was never the plan." Her words carried undeniable weight. It wasn't accusation anymore. It was documented proof. The judge, who had remained largely silent until then, finally sat forward. Mr. Brown, why were family money sent to one wife's residence and the others left with nothing? Kody tripped. He had talked about Robyn's children needing stability, the interruption of moving, and how the other wives could wait. His rationale served only to bolster Christine and Janelle's argument. Their lawyers contended hotly, saying this wasn't partnership. It was favoritism that Kody had installed himself as a dictator of family money. Each word made Kody's defense weaker. He maintained he had always intended to build up Coyote Pass, but every justification was undermined by tangible proof. When confronted as to why no permits had ever been submitted for building on the property, he replied the family was not prepared. When asked to explain why Robyn's mortgage was more important than even small development at Coyote Pass, he became angry, asserting his role as head of the family. But rage can't destroy paper trails, and the record said otherwise. The turning point occurred when Christine's lawyer questioned Kody on cross-examination. Text messages were presented where Christine was begging for a status report on her promised house. Kody's reply, "It is not your turn yet. Wait patiently," the attorney pushed. How is it not her turn when she contributed as much as or more than Robyn? Kody attempted to deflect, insisting that Christine was unstable and focusing on her home wasn't smart. The courtroom gasped in horror. Christine's lawyer did not hesitate. So, it is not about fairness. It is about punishment. That statement turned the tables. Kody looked cornered for the first time. Robyn, who had been silent until now, cried, begging the judge to consider that Kody was fighting for the family and that Christine and Janelle were distorting the facts. But instead of sympathy, her tears ended up playing against her. Christine interrupted abruptly, "This has nothing to do with tears. It has to do with the truth." The judge nodded, reiterating that truth always prevailed over feelings. Robyn's case fell apart against the evidence. Each individual in the courtroom sensed the drama, gasp, whispers. Even headshakes were inside the room as each new discovery was made. Some of the Brown children, who were there to bear witness, looked devastated. All those years of suspicion were finally confirmed. The funds intended for their homes had been channeled elsewhere. Christine and Janelle were being heard for the first time. Their sacrifices, frustration, and heartache were recognized. Their lawyer summed up assertively, "This isn't just a dispute over property. It is about promises unfulfilled, trust betrayed, and two women who gave their all to be left with nothing." The court needs to act not only to safeguard their rights, but to make sure manipulation can't take the place of justice. Kody's attorney tried to plead it was a miscommunication, that Kody had always planned to do the follow-through. But the harm was already done. The narrative was clear, cut, and the evidence was compelling. By the close of the session, it was clear who was in control. Christine and Janelle hadn't just presented their argument, they had laid waste to Kody's credibility. The courtroom that once witnessed Kody as the patriarch of a big family now witnessed him laid bare. A leader who had promised equality but who practiced favoritism. A husband who had claimed love but exercised control. A patriarch who had spoken of oneness but had sown discord. As the gavel came down to recess the court for the day, one thing was certain. This battle over dollars and power was no longer just a family skirmish. It was a battle that would define the future of Coyote Pass and Kody's name for all time. In every courtroom battle, there is a moment of truth, and Kody had been counting for weeks on one individual to soften his public image, to make his actions human. That individual was Robyn. She was his pick, the wife he constructed a mansion for, leaving the rest behind with promises unfilled. If anyone was going to persuade the judge, it should be Robyn. But in court, truth has a tendency to penetrate through tears. And when Robyn finally stood before the judge, her testimony, intended to save Kody, broke apart under the pressure of evidence, contradictions, and the relentless wrath of Christine and Janelle. The courtroom was silent as Robyn reluctantly made her way to the witness stand. Her eyes were already puffy from crying, a tissue grasped in one hand. Kody gave her a reassuring nod, but his own face reflected the panic brewing underneath. He needed her testimony. If she didn't provide it, his defense was falling apart. The bailiff administered the oath to her, and Robyn's lawyer posed the first question. "Mrs. Brown, why did you believe Kody behaved reasonably about Coyote Pass?" Robyn leaned in close to the microphone, her voice soft but quavering. "Kody was attempting to do what he believed was right for all of us. He always wanted us to be able to have homes on Coyote Pass. But things kept holding him back. Financial losses, family drama, delays. He never meant to hurt anyone. She blew on the tissue and used it to dab at her eyes. Several people in the courtroom seemed sympathetic, but Christine and Janelle's lawyers were prepared, like hunters awaiting their prey. Christine's lawyer rose from her seat, documents in hand, and the atmosphere changed at once. "Mrs. Brown, you state Kody acted on behalf of the family's best interests. Can you tell us why, over the last 5 years, more than $400,000 worth of combined family funds was used to pay your mortgage, with no investment made for Christine or Janelle?" Robyn's hands clamped harder on the tissue. "I didn't know the amounts. I thought the money was being spent on things we'd all agreed on." The lawyer cut in brusquely. "And you didn't think to ask when your house was being bought with money donated by Christine and Janelle?" Robyn cast a pleading glance at Kody, but he looked away, jaw clenching. Murmurs spread through the courtroom. Her defense was falling apart. Christine leaned forward, not able to keep quiet. She knew, of course. We all knew something was amiss. "Every time I asked Kody when my house would be constructed, he told me to wait. All the while, Robyn's mortgage was paid." The judge rapped the gavel to try to restore order, but the harm was done. Christine's words stung like a blow, and the jury of public opinion, everyone sitting there, was already beginning to turn on Robyn. Robyn tried to regain her footing, leaning into her emotions. Her voice cracked as she spoke through tears. "You don't understand how hard it's been. I've been attacked constantly. By the public. By my sister wives. By people who think I'm to blame for everything. Kody was just trying to ensure my kids had a safe home. That doesn't mean he doesn't care about the others." Her tears rang out in the courtroom. For an instant, there was stillness. But not sympathy was their response, but rather disbelieving glances. Janelle's lawyer rose, speaking the clincher. "Mrs. Brown, emotion has nothing to do with this case. It is about justice. The facts indicate you lived well in your mansion, while the other wives were treated to nothing but mere promises." The judge nodded firmly. "This court makes its rulings on fact, and not on tears." Robyn's emotional shield had cracked. Christine's team wasn't finished. They created property documents illustrating that while years went by in which Kody had assured movement on Coyote Pass, funds were solely directed towards Robyn's property. The lawyer held up one sheet. "Here we find $75,000 taken from the family account and being placed into Robyn's mortgage." "Mrs. Brown, did you ever ask yourself why none of those funds were being sent towards Christine's or Janelle's stake in Coyote Pass?" Robyn stuttered. "I left it to Kody to deal with. I figured he would know best." Christine's lawyer took the opportunity. "So you admit that you profited financially at the expense of the other wives, and you didn't fight it?" Robyn fell silent. The courtroom was electric. Everyone knew she had boxed herself in. Christine's voice sliced through the silence. "This isn't about tears, Robyn. This is about truth." Her voice rang out off the walls. Witnesses gasped. Even the judge sat back, awed by her fervor. That sentence was the day's headline, a moment that summed up the entire case. Robyn appeared shattered. Her tears were empty, her words no longer persuasive. Her defense, which was intended to shield Kody, became the very reason the case was lost against him. While Robyn sat trembling, Kody's face grew dark. He gritted his teeth, balling his fists. For the first time, the mask was shed. He was no longer the confident patriarch, but a desperate man as he saw his last defense dissolve. Fans whispered, pointing, as the reality of the courtroom drama set in. The sight of Kody glowering sullenly while Robyn cried only added fuel to the impression of him as the puppet master, allowing her to take the heat while he kept silent. Christine and Janelle's lawyers didn't hesitate. "Mr. Kody F. Brown has been letting Robyn shoulder the blame for years now, hiding behind her tears while manipulating the finances." The judge held his tongue, but didn't need to. The courtroom already knew. Robyn attempted one last plea for sympathy. "We're a plural family. People don't understand how hard that is. Kody carries the burden of all of us, and it's not fair to blame him." The judge leaned forward, stern. "Mrs. Brown, this isn't about the challenges of plural marriage. This is about misuse of funds and breach of contract. Stick to your testimony." That shut her up. Her last attempt at defense was cut short, and the court acknowledged the official breakdown of her side. Once the testimony spread beyond the courtroom. Sister Wives fans erupted online. Social media buzzed with hashtags like Truth Not Tears and Coyote Pass Justice. Fans who had long suspected Kody's favoritism toward Robyn felt vindicated. Supporters of Christine and Janelle praised their bravery, hailing them as heroes defending not only themselves, but every woman who had ever felt ignored or exploited. Robyn, initially defended by a few as misunderstood, now faced widespread criticism for breaking down under cross-examination. When Robyn finally stepped down from the witness stand, she looked defeated. Head dipped, shoulders dropped, tissues wet in her hands. She would not meet Christine's and Janelle's eyes, who sat together firm and unshakable. Kody attempted to comfort her with a hand on her shoulder, but it only served to highlight the fact that they stood so very alone. The former mighty head of the Brown tribe was now backed into a corner, with no shield left to hold on to. The judge was quiet and intent, writing notes. But all the people in the room knew that the harm was done. Robyn's defense had fallen short, and Kody was sentenced. In each courtroom fight, there is a point at which truth prevails over lies, when tears dry and justice steps out of the darkness. For Kody and Robyn, that moment was reached. She entered as his guardian, his protector, his final integrity hope, and exited as the very personification of what Christine and Janelle had been fighting against: favoritism, manipulation, and betrayal. Christine's words ran through her mind: "This isn't about tears, it is about truth." The handwriting was on the wall. Kody Brown's reign of control was disintegrating, and no tears could halt it. All courtroom dramas culminate in a climax, and the verdict is the peak. In Kody Brown versus Christine and Janelle, the stakes, and the result, were historic. For weeks, the courtroom was ablaze with fervent testimonies, piles of financial documents, and tearful breakdowns. Christine dominated the hearing. Janelle offered irrefutable evidence, and Robyn's defense fell apart under examination. Everyone was poised to hear the gavel, waiting for the words of the judge that would decide the destiny of Coyote Pass. The judgment, however, was heart-wrenching beyond imagination. Not just was Kody guilty of contract breaches and abuse of family resources, but the ruling was complete, humiliating, and sweeping. Kody Brown was forbidden from ever stepping onto Coyote Pass again. The land where he used to call the crown jewel of his family was now off limits by law. The verdict day was like a storm about to break. Reporters clustered outside the courthouse, cameras popping, microphones raised, and everyone who had a role to play in the case was present. Sister Wives enthusiasts showed up hours in advance, all wanting to bear witness to history. Within, the air was thick with tension. Christine sat front row center, hands folded, jaw set in resolve. Janelle was composed but immovable, eyes on the bench. Kody sat next to Robyn, pale face, his bluster shed. For the first time he looked small, a man on the edge of losing everything. The judge came in, robes flowing, the ultimate decision in hand. A hush fell. Each cough, shuffle, and anxious breath seemed like thunder. The judge hesitated, scanning the thick sheaf of papers with the final decision. Each second ticked by longer than the last. Finally, the judge said, "This court has weighed all evidence, from books to deeds to personal testimony. That which was to be a symbol of strength has been turned into an instrument of manipulation and control. Promises were broken, agreements ignored, and trust betrayed." The room gasped in shock. The statements cut close to the bone, repeating near verbatim Christine's and Janelle's allegations. For them, it was validation. For Kody, it was devastation. The judge went on reviewing the findings. Family money had been spent to retire Robyn's mortgage. No similar investments had been made on Christine's or Janelle's properties. Building permits on Coyote Pass had never been submitted, years of guarantees notwithstanding. And worst of all, documents indicated Kody had tried to shift ownership stakes in Coyote Pass to himself, and Robyn without the permission of Christine or Janelle. Each new discovery was a stiletto, forcing Kody into an ever tighter corner. He gazed at the table, not daring to lift his eyes. Robyn held onto his hand, sobbing, but even her weeping couldn't alter the facts now. Then came the moment of surprise. The judge looked forward, voice cool and steady. "In light of the egregiousness of these acts, this court finds that Mr. Kody Brown is forever precluded from entering, remaining upon, or going onto Coyote Pass property in any way." The court also acknowledges the majority ownership and interests of Christine Brown and Janelle Brown, to whom the land is hereby given in legal possession. The courtroom exploded. Gasps, whispers, even applause burst forth before the gavel was brought down to restore order. Kody's head leapt up, his eyes wide with shock. "Permanently banned," he breathed, as though the words couldn't possibly be true. Robyn hid her face in her hands and wept uncontrollably. Christine slumped back in her chair, her face alight with triumph. Janelle closed her eyes for a moment, letting relief flood her. This wasn't just a win, it was complete and utter. The judge went on to say, "This is not a decision made lightly." When one side, however, repeatedly demonstrates favoritism, mismanagement, and manipulation to the harm of others, the court has no choice but to act to provide fairness. The property was acquired with collective money, and Mr. Brown's actions show that he cannot be relied on to fulfill agreements mutually made. Limiting his access and ownership is required to safeguard the rights of those who contributed in good faith. It was legal jargon, but the message was understandable to all. Kody had violated his family's trust and now was paying the price. For Christine, the moment felt otherworldly. She said in interviews afterwards that it was as if a lifetime of frustration, manipulation, and false promises had been washed away. In the courtroom, her victory smile spoke volumes. When the judge inquired whether she wanted to speak, Christine was resolute. This land was never about control. It was about family. "I am thankful the court saw that truth." There was a polite bout of applause in the courtroom. She had gone from being silenced within her marriage to being the courtroom winner, a remarkable reversal witnessed by the world. Janelle, always cool and composed, did not rub it in. She just nodded in confirmation of Christine's words. For years, she had kept things peaceful behind the scenes at the cost of her own stability. Justice had finally been heard speaking on her behalf in subsequent interviews. She mused, "This wasn't about winning. It was about fairness, and today we finally got it." Her humility only served to strengthen the impact of the verdict. Christine basked in fiery victory, Janelle, quiet dignity together. They were invincible. Kody, on the other hand, was visibly heartbroken. He slammed his fist on the table, snarling viciously to his lawyer and baring his teeth at Robyn, who wept into her tissues. When asked to speak in response, he leapt to his feet, screaming, "This is not justice. This is betrayal. I built this family I sacrificed, and now you are taking everything away from me." The judge rapped the gavel down. "Mr. Brown, sit down." His outburst only reinforced what Christine and Janelle had been demonstrating all along. Kody had viewed family finances as his own, never considering equality. His anger elicited no sympathy, only confirmation of the truth. Since the ruling became front-page news, the word spread like wildfire. Kody Brown excluded from Coyote Pass. Twitter was filled with tweets from fans praising Christine and Janelle for their win. Some of them called it poetic justice. Others claimed it was the moment they had been waiting for since the first few seasons of the show. Memes, videos, and hashtags went wild across all platforms. Justice for Christine, Coyote Pass victory, Kody banned forever. The ruling didn't only transform the Brown family, it was a cultural reference point. Viewers recognized it as a symbol of accountability, a lesson that even the most controlling leaders can be held accountable. By making the ruling, Christine and Janelle gained majority control of Coyote Pass, claiming control of the land they had developed and fought for years to defend. For Janelle and Christine, this wasn't merely about the property, it was about taking back their voices. Janelle talked about opening up her share finally, building a place where her children and grandchildren could come together without living under the specter of broken promises. Christine, already settled into her new existence, saw it as a declaration of liberty, a definite indication that to leave and decide for herself had been the correct choice. Together, they promised that Coyote Pass would at last serve its original purpose, not an instrument of control, but a refuge for family and healing. For Kody, the decision was more than a technical loss, it was absolute humiliation. He had constructed his persona as patriarch to a large family, but now the court took away his authority, excluding him from the very land he had declared would be his legacy. The edict would torment him for the rest of his days. Mr. Kody Brown is permanently excluded from Coyote Pass. It wasn't a sentence, it was a symbol. A man who once posed as a unifier of a family had been banished from the dream he himself had built. As Christine and Janelle left the courtroom together, heads held high, Kody slumped in his chair, a broken patriarch surveying the wreckage of his falling kingdom. There is one moment in every court case that captures it all, and for the Brown family, it was this. The secret court order had been revealed, laying bare the entire reality of Kody Brown's control empire. Although he might once have dreamed of building houses on Coyote Pass, the court had now sealed it forever against him. The dream had become a nightmare. The patriarch was now in exile, and Coyote Pass, which had once been intended to be symbolic of unity, was now in the hands of the women who would not give in. Christine and Janelle stormed out victorious, Kody left with nothing, and the world would never forget the day when the judge banged his gavel and announced, "Kody Brown banned from Coyote Pass for all eternity." When the gavel came down and the words were uttered, it didn't just seal a court case, it sealed an age. It rattled the Brown family to its very foundations, shook the foundations of their relationship, and left Sister Wives viewers reeling. But with every end, there is a new beginning. The aftermath of this decision would shape the Brown family's future in ways that no one could have imagined. This wasn't just a courtroom fight, it was the culmination of years of shattered promises, bruised egos, and bitter truth. Now that the dust had finally settled, the question lingered: what lies ahead for Christine, Janelle, Robyn, and most of all, Kody Brown? Kody departed the courthouse like a man who'd been stripped of all dignity. He was besieged by reporters as he stormed out, yelling over questions but not answering any. His face was red with anger, his fists tightened at his sides. Cameras caught it all. The erstwhile patriarch, who had preached family and unity for years, now a mass of fury and silence. Inside sources said Kody was embarrassed. This was not just about real estate, it was about heritage. Coyote Pass had been designed as his masterwork, the last curtain call in the Brown family drama. Now, by the hand of the court, he could never enter it again. Behind closed doors, insiders reported, he berated, accusing Janelle and Christine of betrayal, the judge of bias, and even Robyn of not defending him. But the fact was undeniable: Kody's kingdom had fallen, and he had no one left to defend it. For Robyn, the verdict was just as crushing. She had entered into marriage believing she was gaining a family, only to find herself the target of resentment. In court, she collapsed under her defense. In the court of public opinion, she was lashed in criticism. Social media exploded, labeling her the queen of favoritism and ridiculing her tears in the courtroom. In her home, she was met with a shattered husband and the bitter reality of living in the same mansion that was supported by funds intended for Coyote Pass. That which had been secure now felt like betrayal. Even her children wondered whether they were spoiled by Kody. Robyn tearfully asserted in interviews that she never asked for special treatment, only equality, and ironically, it was exactly equality that the court finally provided, just not to her. As Kody and Robyn fell into defeat, Christine's victory was historic. The woman who had long been silenced, dismissed, and ignored by Kody had triumphed as the undisputed winner. Fans celebrated her as a heroine, filling social media with hashtags such as Team Christine and Queen Christine, trending for days in her name. Christine was commended on her bravery, leaving Kody years before, telling the truth in court with force, and holding firm against all the efforts to silence her. She called the verdict a weight taken off her shoulders. For years, I felt trapped in a dream that wasn't mine. Now I finally feel free. Coyote Pass isn't about Kody anymore. It is about the future I build. Her testimony struck a chord with fans, particularly women who had felt overlooked or underappreciated in their own relationships. Christine's win was more than personal. It was a cultural moment of empowerment. Standing alongside her was Janelle, the quiet warrior. Her look was never boisterous or showy, but it was consistent, relentless, and incredibly potent. While Christine's testimony was the spark that ignited the passion of the courtroom, Janelle's proof clinched the case. In the aftermath of the verdict, Janelle did not gloat or taunt anyone but simply said, "This isn't about winning, it is about fairness." Her quiet dignity earned unimaginable respect. Fans looked up to her for her patience, strength, and capacity to support Christine without compromising her own independence. To others, Janelle represented the strength of peaceful perseverance leading to justice. With Coyote Pass majority ownership now hers, Janelle smiled ahead. She talked about finally constructing her dream house on the land, a site where her grandchildren and children could come together for generations. In contrast with Kody's broken promises, her dreams were now achievable because they were hers to make. Meri's name was glaringly missing from the courtroom soap opera. Kody's first wife had become more and more estranged over time, her marriage to him irreparably broken. She didn't join in the lawsuit, though fans were making guesses about her emotions. Some sources said she secretly backed Christine and Janelle. Others stated that she felt sadness and relief. Sadness that the family had broken apart. Relief that the truth had finally come out. Whatever her personal opinions, Meri remained on the sidelines, watching the collapse of the family she had been instrumental in creating from the start. The repercussions went farther than Kody, Robyn, Christine, and Janelle. Adult children were split. Many of Christine's and Janelle's kids rejoiced publicly, thanking their moms for resisting Kody. Some even blogged about justice being served at last. Robyn's kids, however, suffered. They were unjustly criticized and blamed for situations outside their control. Family gatherings, previously crazy but together, were now impossible. The ruling had instigated a permanent split, Christine and Janelle against Kody and Robyn. For the children, the vision of one large, cohesive family was now lost. Public outcry was vociferous. Sister Wives fans who had watched the family drama unfold for more than a decade welcomed the ruling as ultimate vindication. Comments flooded social media. Finally, Christine and Janelle get the justice they deserve. Kody's empire of control is over. This is the ending we've been waiting for since season 1. News outlets, talk shows, and podcasts dissected the ruling, while online platforms buzzed worldwide about justice, power, and women standing up for themselves. The decision earned Kody public shame and praise for Christine and Janelle. It was a milestone in the history of reality television. After the ruling, Christine and Janelle owned Coyote Pass outright. Everyone wondered, what would they do with it? Christine spoke of turning it into a retreat for her children and grandchildren, while Janelle envisioned sustainable living, building a home where she could garden and create harmony. Rumors even suggested the two might collaborate to build a family compound, not for Kody, but for themselves. One built on equality, trust, and love. Coyote Pass would finally be used for its intended purpose, not for a means of control, but as a haven of freedom. Kody's future was grim. Legally excluded from property that was once his crowning glory, shunned by most of his wives and children, and publicly reviled, his reputation was in tatters. There were reports that he could leave with Robyn to begin again, away from Coyote Pass. Others guessed he might try an appeal, but experts indicated that his hopes were slim. In any case, the taint of defeat would accompany him. The once proud patriarch was now a figure of failure, banished from his own vision. The same fate had been reserved for Robyn. She had come into the marriage in search of family and ended up the center of bitterness. Her defense in court disintegrated, and social media ridiculed her, crying, dubbing her the queen of cronyism. In her home life, she had a busted marriage, and the irony of residing in the mansion that was paid for out of the funds meant for Coyote Pass, a treachery that spilled even to her children, who wondered if they had been unmeritedly favored. Robyn wept in interviews, claiming she was simply seeking equality, which ironically the court eventually granted, but not to her. While Kody and Robyn lost, Christine's win was a landmark. Once silenced and ignored, she became the undisputed champion. Fans cheered. Hashtags such as Team Christine and Queen Christine trended for days, commemorating her victory. Christine's courage and Janelle's quiet strength had remade Coyote Pass. Kody's fantasy was now the women's, the women who would not be defeated. The court had rewritten the family's narrative. Christine and Janelle, empowered and triumphant, Kody defeated and estranged. The fantasy of Coyote Pass survived, on their own terms, on freedom, on fairness, and on hope.